Bueno, entonces, buenas tardes. Damos la bienvenida pues a este último evento de esta semana. Vamos a esperar unos minutos para que se conecten más personas y mientras tanto pues vamos a estar esperando. Bueno, entonces, buenas tardes a todas las personas que están conectadas con nosotros. Hoy es el último día del conversatorio de la Semana con GeoLatinas. El tema en esta ocasión es How do you perceive Latin women o Latin women's role in geosciences? Este evento es organizado por GeoLatinas Medellín con el apoyo del Museo de Geosciencias y con el apoyo de la Universidad Nacional de Colombia. Voy a hacer una presentación de las invitadas del día de hoy, de cada una de ellas, de los perfiles, y después continuamos a hacer las preguntas para las invitadas. Entonces, la primera invitada es Rachelle Kernen. Rachelle, y voy a empezar a hablar en inglés. Rachelle has a bachelor's degree in geology from the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. She has an MSc in geology from New Mexico State University and a PhD in geology from University of Texas at El Paso, where her focus was to integrate cell tectonic fieldwork, seismic data, physical modeling, and geochemistry to answer complex petroleum-related questions about geological processes within salt diapirs and along the salt-sediment interface. She has extensive salt tectonic seismic interpretation experience in the oil industry and working for Shell and BP. Currently, she is the co-chair of AAPG's Women's Network, co-founder of AAPG's Salt Basin Technical Interest Groups, and an honorary visiting research fellow at Australia's School of Petroleum and Energy Resources at the University of Adelaide. Our next person to be invited is Clairet Guerra. Clairet is a civil engineer of the Pontificia Universidad Javeriana. She has an MSc in geotechnical engineering at the same university and a PhD in computational geomechanics at the Technische Universität in Darmstadt. She has also an MSc, or she is an MSc candidate in space resources of the Colorado School of Mines. Currently, she is working as a reservoir geomechanics engineer at Wintershall in Germany, and her work and recent publications are related to integrated reservoir geomechanics modeling for stress and fracture prediction. We also have with us Frances Rivera Hernandez. She is a planetary geologist. Her research is focused on using the sedimentary record to reconstruct what the surface of planetary bodies may have looked like in the past and to evaluate whether they had conditions capable of supporting life. Currently, she is the Guarini Dean Postdoc Fellow in the Department of Earth Sciences of Dartmouth College, working with Dr. Marisa Palutis. She has a PhD in geology from the University of California, Davis, an MSc in Earth and Space Sciences from the University of Washington, and a bachelor degree in geology and astrophysics from the University of Wyoming. In January 2021, she will be starting as an assistant professor at the Georgia Institute of Technology in the School of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences. Outside of research, she remains active in several outreach informal education projects to encourage students from underrepresented communities to pursue STEM careers. Also with us is Kiara Gómez. Kiara is interested in applications of geochemistry, in particular trace metal concentrations and biomarkers, to address important questions in geology. She is a PhD candidate and in her 5th year of a PhD in the Jackson School of Geosciences at Austin. She is also a first-generation college student with Colombian roots and a person who stutters. Her research currently focuses on understanding the impact of the North Sea Dome on lower to middle Jurassic intervals of the North Sea. Prior to her time in Austin, she completed an MSc in petroleum engineering at the Technical University of Crete and is passionate about increasing diversity in STEM fields through mentoring and community outreach. With us is also Aída Guhlincozzi. She has a BA bachelor degree in geography. She minors in English and geoinformatics at Texas A&M University, and she has a master's in Geography University at Illinois at Urbana-Champaign minor, and is a minor in Latino and Latina studies. Aída Rosalía is a PhD candidate at the University of Illinois, and is married to a veterinarian. And a daughter of educators, her research focuses on the health geographies of immigrant Latina women in Chicago suburbs using mixed methods. Broadly, her research interests include health geography, health GIS, and race, ethnicity, language, and gender in healthcare. She is the social media manager for the American Association of Geographers Latinx Geography Specialty Group. María Natalia Vallejo is Ingeniera de Minas y Metalurgia from the National University of Colombia in Medellín, and she has an MSc in Mining Engineering and Materials at McGill University in Quebec, Canada. Maria is a Colombian mining engineer. with over 10 years of global experience, spanning mining venture at all stages of development and across a variety of commodities, with a strong interest in implementing advanced mining technologies. Maria has specialized in long-term mine planning, pit and schedule optimization, risk analysis, and economic evaluation of mineral projects. She holds a bachelor's degree in mining engineering, a graduate diploma in surface mine equipment, and a master's degree in stochastic mine planning. Currently, she serves as a manager of global business development and acquisitions for Barrick Gold. In the past, Maria has held positions with Waterton Global Resources, Hexagon Mining, AngloGold Ashanti, and Glencore Coal. And finally, we have Nicole Gasparini. Nicole is a PhD in civil and environmental engineering, and her bachelor degrees was in mathematics and her BA in physical geography at the State University of New York at Buffalo. Nicole's research interests include fluvial geomorphology, tectonic geomorphology, evolution of alluvial and bedrock river networks, landscape evolution modeling, and numerical model development. Interactions among climate, tectonics, and erosion. Also, effects of climate change on landscape evolution, sediment production and transport of sediment from hill slopes to rivers to depositional systems. Human influences on landscape evolution. She is an associate professor of Tulane University in the Department of Earth and Environmental Sciences. She has a research group named GIGLE, which is Gasparini's Inclusive Geomorphology and Landscape Evolution Group, that is focused on landscape evolution and hydrologic research. The group is also Learn Together ways to make STEM and academia anti-racist and more equitable. Well, very, very hi to everybody. And I'm gonna start asking the questions. The first question is, what motivated you, all of you, to study in a country different from your native country? And how has this experience in a foreign country been for you? And also, have you experienced more gender inequality than in your native Latin American country? These questions have to do with your choice to study somewhere else and how this has been for you. So let's start. Let's start with Rachelle. If you want to answer these questions. Rachelle, I think your microphone is not on.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. So I originally grew up near the Canadian border. And when I decided that I was going to go to graduate school, it was really important to me to go back to my roots. I'm originally born in California, and I grew up in a dominant Hispanic community. I was bilingual when I was little, and I went to a predominantly Hispanic school. So it was really important for me once I left my home up near Canada that I wanted to go back to my roots. So I decided to pursue my master's degree at New Mexico State University. And if you aren't familiar with New Mexico, where I went to school is about 45 minutes from the Mexican border. I moved to Houston, worked in the oil industry, and then I came back to El Paso, which sits right on the border. And I've just really enjoyed the time that I've spent there. And I've had a really amazing, diverse cultural experience being there. It's fundamentally different from where I got my undergraduate degree in Wisconsin and where I originally came from. And I think for me, it's been really important to see how the industry and how jobs and school is different, and advocating on my campus for giving tests and having classes available in English and in Spanish. There's a whole bunch of different topics that I can speak on there. But I'm beyond grateful that I did it. And I just feel that it's really important that we include Latin America in every political conversation, every educational conversation, energy, whatever topic you may be involved in or studying forward, I view us as North America, as one whole country that we need to be working together. I hope someday that the US is more open to being bilingual, and Spanish and English are taught simultaneously throughout all grade levels. So I've just really enjoyed the experience I have. And thank you again for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for accepting and being here. Yeah. I don't know, Clairet. Hi.
So thank you for having me. I'm very honored and proud to be here among all these amazing ladies. So there are 3 questions in the question you asked. So I will ask them in that sequence. And the first one is, what motivated me to study in a country different from my native country? I think it all starts with being a very curious kid. So, and ever since I was little, I've been extremely curious and I want to know everything about everything. On top of that, Venezuela is a very diverse country. And we were exposed from very young age to this cultural pond that is Venezuela. And you can see that when you're a little kid in your school. I mean, some kid is extremely white and some kid is extremely Asian, things like this. So you are culturally aware that there is something else than the typical or standard Venezuelan features and ethnicities. This is, like, I believe that is the spark of why I later on decided to pursue a career outside my native Venezuela. On top of that, you need to add that when the time for big decisions in academia came, Venezuela was going through the early stages of social and political disruption. So the context that was being developed was not fully in agreement or compatible with my professional and personal goals. On top of that, add that by those times when I was starting university, my mother decided she decided herself to move out of the country to fulfill her professional goals. So I had in my own house the example of a Latin woman thriving in her career in another country. So when the time came to make decisions, it was very easy for me to say, okay, I have to do this to fulfill my own personal dreams. Now, how has it been the experience in the foreign countries? I've lived in 2 foreign countries. One is Colombia and the other one is Germany. And to say that it has been intense, it's underestimated. It has been extremely hard to live this migration process in these 2 different contexts. In Colombia, it was my first time outside of my country, and even though we share the same language, we don't share the same ways of addressing yourself socially. So it was my school to learn how to be a good migrant, how to address yourself to people, how to conduct yourself, how to access the education system, what are the legal papers that you need to make your studies and your professional endeavors valid, all of this. On top of that, I owe Colombia some of my best friends and my main support system. They are Colombians today, and it's mainly because we met in this transition of my life, and you built this genuine and very dear to me, this friendship. Then came Germany, when I went on to do my PhDs, and here you not only have all the migrant and transition issues, but you also have a new level of challenge, which is the language barrier. So I had to learn German, and I'm still trying to resolve that issue 5 years later. But I'm getting there, I promise. The third one is we've experienced more gender inequality than in the native Latin American country. I didn't pursue any professional or academic endeavor in Venezuela, so I will speak as a Venezuelan in Colombia. And the thing is that on the early stages of the career and in university and on entry-level job scale, you see a high number of female peers. But this number starts to decrease as you start scaling up in different rankings of the professional ladder, or when you see managerial positions. So this number is decreasing, hard. In Germany, I found myself being the only one of many things, the only Latin and the only women most of the time. In the extreme cases, I was the only woman of the team. So I would say, yes, in general, outside of the Latin country, the inequality is, it's bigger. So yeah, I'll leave it like that, not to expand myself that much. So thank you.
I think you're muted.
Gracias. And considering that Germany is one of the most inclusive countries in Europe, and you found it so hard, and you're the only woman in many instances, so that's a consideration, you know. Okay, I had Francis.
Hi everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to join today. It is a true pleasure to be here. So I guess to address the first question, what motivated me to leave my country? Well, I should clarify that, so I'm from Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is part of the United States, and I did my college in the mainland United States. And so while it is the same country, Puerto Rico does have its own cultural identity. We have a different primary language. And so it does truly feel like I did go from a different country to the mainland US. What motivated me was that I've always was interested in space my whole life. And I knew that I wanted to study astronomy or go into some space-related field. And at the time when I had to make the decision to go to college, the only options for me in Puerto Rico were physics-based. So if I wanted to do astronomy or space, anything, I really couldn't do that. And so, and while I look young, this was back in 2004. And so yeah, it was just a matter of opportunities. What I wanted to do did not really exist in Puerto Rico at the time, and it really does not exist still today. There have been some work trying to fix that. There's a minor in astronomy in one of the universities of Puerto Rico, but really, if I wanted to do like a major in something that was space related, I couldn't do that in Puerto Rico. And so I randomly decided to go to Wyoming, out of all places, to go to college. And that was a very drastic cultural change for me, to say the least. And then as Marion was saying in her introduction, I went to a variety of universities in the mainland US. And while the US itself is a country, every state is its own little cultural bubble. And so I feel that while I had to go through the extreme change from Puerto Rico to Wyoming, I then still had when I moved from Wyoming to Washington State, from Washington State to California, and even to New Hampshire, all of those different states were completely different cultural experiences for me. And I think that ultimately that was a good thing because I was able to experience a lot of diversity. Again, even though I was still in the same country. In addition, during my PhD, I also I spent about a year in France, and that was also completely different, as Clairet was talking about in Germany. And in addition to being a foreigner, in France, I also had to deal with being the only Latina, and also the language barrier and learning French. And I attempted in the beginning and then gave up by the end. But that as well was also a very good learning experience for me. Being in a different country, seeing how the departments there work, the dynamics, the hierarchical structure. I really did feel that, while there are still a lot of problems in the US and in the US system, I felt that in France, the hierarchy was even more set. I didn't feel that as a graduate student, I was in the same level as the professors. which in the US is typically not the case. We're more of collaborators. You know, you have that advisorial relationship, and I felt like that wasn't really the case in France. And so I'm glad again that I had that experience. And again, a lot of diversity. The other question, gender inequality. So as Clairet was saying, you know, I've experienced, even in the mainland US, a lot of situations where I've been the only woman in the room, especially when I was an undergrad. In a lot of my physics classes and math classes, I was typically the only woman, and also, again, the only Latina. But I think even with all of those problems, you know, in Puerto Rico, we have a lot of machismo culture. And while my immediate family really wanted me to, you know, they were very supportive, it's still not, in a lot of rural places, like where I'm from, women aren't really expected to go into science or even work, really. So, so while there is still some inequality that I've experienced in the US, I still think it was slightly better than, I guess, what my expectations were for a lot of people, or a lot of women, you know, in the towns, the rural towns in Puerto Rico, for example, where I'm from. Yeah, I don't know if I missed a question, but hopefully that addressed all of them. And again, happy to be here.
No, very, very, very interesting. A lot of different experiences from all of you in different places. Not only one place, but to be in different places gives a lot of insight. I don't know, Aída.
Yeah, so first, thank you for having me on this panel, and I'm really excited to be here and listen to everybody's stories. In response to the question, so I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, and I grew up, so it's a very heavily Latinx, Mexican-American city, and I grew up, you know, hearing about my mom's Mexican-American family heritage of like moving to San Antonio and from Mexico, and you know, creating a life there, and also my father's stories of growing up in Panama. And so both of these, you know, sides of my family really instilled in me this like desire to go to these other countries and that are part of my heritage and my parents' experiences, and visit and learn about them. And so while I didn't study abroad for a very long time, I did visit Costa Rica in undergrad for a month as part of pursuing my major in geography. And while I was there, I mean, I experienced a lot of privilege as being an American student in Costa Rica, but I learned a lot about the complex relationships between the United States and many of the countries in Latin and Central America. And it really opened my eyes to what needs to be done to make sure that we are encouraging the work of awesome people in Latin America, you know, to actually be recognized and heeded in the United States. So that's a big part of why I participated in that study abroad. And, you know, in my undergrad, I found that often I wasn't the only woman in geography, but the gender parity certainly isn't there, at least at my university. So, thanks.
Thank you. Maria, what has your experience been?
Sure. So, okay, first of all, hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. Super honored to be sharing this space with like such a strong panel of Latino women. So I'm really, really, really happy to be here. And thank you, GeoLatinas, for this invitation. So I think like the question is like what motivated me to study in a different country. I'm Colombian, born and raised, and I left the country when I was around 25 years old. So I was already working in the industry. I was part of like a major mining company at that time. And I think what like made me realize that I needed to leave was that most of the experts of like the people that are like running the show are usually foreigners. Like the experts were coming from Canada, from Australia, from the United States, and like you rarely see like Latin study expert. So I started to realize that I was like missing a lot of information, and that if I wanted to be part of the discussion, not just an executor, but actually being part of the people that are, as I'm saying, like running the show, I needed to have this international experience, but at the same time, I needed to have a second or third language. At the time, as I'm telling you, when I was 25, I didn't speak like a single word in English. So I learned English just 7 years ago. And this is the proof that everybody can, because if I could, everybody can. And I have worked in 4 different countries, and I have lived in 12 different cities in the last 9 years of my career. And that has exposed me to like all different type of experiences, languages, points of view, how society reacts, and like that in lieu with the question that if I believe that there is a difference in terms of equality in between Colombia and like where I am right now, for example, Canada, like the answer is absolutely yes. Unfortunately, in Colombia and a smaller degree in Chile, women are perceived to not be ready to do the same thing that men can do. Mostly when, in my case, I'm not in the academy and more invested in the industry per se, like in working in mining environments, where like 99% of the people working there are men. So it's a male-dominated industry. And of course, once you start like working in these places, the first question is like, let's see if she's able to do it. Let's check. I don't know, maybe she's trying to find a husband here, like stuff like that. And you see it, they tell it to you, like they treat you in that way. So I think that when I started to work first in Denver in the United States, and then I had the opportunity to work in Quebec and then in Arizona, like in these different places, I realized that the people will treat me with like the same way that a man will be treated. It's like, if you're here, if you're showing up, if you have these credentials, okay, let's get to work. I don't need to see if you are ready for this or not. Just let's do it. While in the Latin countries, you get to see like let's see. So I think that's a big thing that unfortunately we get to experience. Latin women when they have to not only study but also work in Latin environments.
Yeah, that's very worrying. And there are certain areas which I think it's very much more than in other areas. And I think mining is in Colombia probably one of the areas where it's very difficult for women still. Yeah. Kiara, how about your experience?
Hi. Thank you for inviting me. I just wanted to say that I am a person who stutters, so if you need me to repeat stuff, let me know. I'm happy to do so. So I was originally born and raised in New York City, but both of my parents are from Cali, Colombia, and I basically grew up in a very Colombian household in Jackson Heights, where my mom was basically very strong on how I needed to have an education, and so I guess that was one of the motivators for me as well. I also moved to Astoria, where it was a predominantly Greek neighborhood, and I learned basic Greek because my mother also wanted me to kind of immerse myself into a particular culture. But honestly, I never thought that that would be the foreshadowing of me like going to live in the country. And so as I was applying to schools, I ended up heading to Smith, which is in Massachusetts. And even though it was about 4 hours from where I was, it was a complete culture shock as well, because there was virtually very few Latinas, and it was particularly hard. But you know, we tend to persevere whenever we have whenever we hit adversity. And so when the time came to graduate and kind of look at what were the things that I wanted to do, I realized that I wanted to go and travel, and I decided to submit an application for the Fulbright in 2014, and I was selected for it. And I was selected for the one that was for 9 months, where you got to conduct oceanographic research on the island of Samos. And so this was one of the things that I never thought would happen. This is just me being from, you know, like the US, and my mom like saying that she had never gone outside of it, and so I never thought I would also. But when I got there, I quickly saw that I was the only Latina, and also, you know, one of the few scientists there, you know, that also spoke Spanish, with the exception of probably one family friend that we discovered. My experience was interesting. I saw that on the islands, you know, the power dynamics were pretty obvious, and that, you know, the kind of like the men were the ones that were like the dominant, although it wasn't really said. But this was different more in the cities as well. And I thought it was one of the most important experiences for me, because it taught me how to kind of talk across cultures, how to respect them also, but also how to kind of like learn as well, and how I can teach as well. And I never really outwardly experienced discrimination in that country, but it was more or less maybe because they knew that I was from the US, and it was very different. And then I also worked and studied in Belize, and over there it was also completely different, but they were very, you know, open to kind of like the women having power also, and so that to me was particularly eye-opening as well.
Very interesting. So it was a chance that you studied Greek, and then you had the opportunity to go there. That's really nice. Very nice. Sometimes that's also what happens. Sometimes it's just an open door that opens by chance, but sometimes it's really looking for the opportunities. But sometimes they just open up by themselves. That's really nice. Nicole, how was your experience?
This is really fun. I'm so happy to be here and so grateful to be included. So my experience is a little bit different because I was born in the United States and studied completely in the United States, but I think I want to sort of answer the question a little bit differently, or maybe answer a different question. So my father is an Italian immigrant, and my mother is the daughter of Italian immigrants. And so my father came to the United States in the 1950s. And in that time, and, you know, much like today, you might see a lot of Hispanic people living in the same community. As at that time, all of the Italian people lived in the same community, one community together. So when you have sort of dynamics like that, and even Kiara mentioned at first when she was born, you know, living in a community of mostly people from her background, you don't necessarily, it's almost like you're insulated, but then when you leave that community, you see things that you didn't necessarily see. And so when I grew up in Buffalo, New York, which is not, and we, you know, just lived in suburbia. It wasn't the place where my dad immigrated to and where my mom lived in like an Italian neighborhood. And so it was interesting simply because I was, you know, it's not the same experience as others have had, but I always sort of knew that my family had some differences. But the wonderful thing I think that I have had throughout my life is that my mother is incredibly welcoming person. And from both of her parents being immigrants, she was always open to like, who needs help in the community? And so my father, was actually a physics professor. And so he was always having students come to do graduate school who were from all over the world, from India or from Mexico or from China. And so we would have this sort of second family that was people from all over, and they would come for Christmas and they would come for Thanksgiving. They would be at our house in the summer for picnics. And that just seemed normal to me. And that is an experience that I feel has really shaped me and influenced kind of who I am, because to me, I have always sort of loved to meet and learn about other cultures. And I think that's something my parents really instilled in me. So if you move forward to when I got my PhD, I was in a very large research group. And there were, again, people from China, people from India, someone from Mexico, someone from Puerto Rico, someone from New Zealand, someone from Russia. And I'm not even exaggerating here. And that dynamic, I think I can say, especially as an earth scientist, has really been a privilege for me, because I think unlike maybe a field like chemistry, in earth science, like we are studying, and especially what I do because I study landscapes and landscape change, having people come from different climate zones, different types of environments, and just sort of naturalizing that and making that part of the research environment, I feel that has been beneficial for me, but also beneficial for all of the people who came together. And so not necessarily talking about people who have come from Latin America, but really I have this very strong sense that when we are learning and education, we should be bringing different experiences, and those different experiences are very large, and they can be where you're from. They can also be sort of, you know, did you grow up rich? Did you grow up not rich? There's lots of different experiences, but to me, those experiences make everything so much stronger. So that is why I have really worked to provide those experiences now that I am a professor to my students. And I think it's been both very valuable to me as I continue on my journey of learning, and also very valuable to the students that I'm trying to make an educational environment for. And so as I continue that, that's why I sought out to be part or to participate with the GeoLatinas, because I saw this was a group of students in my university that I wanted to help make connections for and make sure they had the support they needed. And I feel like these broad connections and networks, both within where we feel like within our comfort zone and then across our comfort zones, really strengthen us as people and scientists.
Yeah, the sense, the community, the dialogue, the talking to other people with other experiences is very important. Not only what you get from this, but also what you can give from this. It's what you can bring to other places with all this experience. Because each one of you has had experiences with other cultures and is transmitting this now, for example, here, which is really great. Well, I'm gonna go to the next question. The next question is, how do you perceive the role of the Latina in geosciences? And do you consider the geosciences inclusive for women? Yeah, and we can start maybe with Francis.
Sure. So I guess as the way I interpret this question, how do I perceive the role of Latina in the geosciences? I guess just following up with what Nicole was saying, I think diversity is a good thing, and I think one of the great things about GeoLatinas is that we've been trying to sort of provide this network and support for Latinas to make sure that we stay, in whatever pipeline we want, whether that is in academia or in industry. But to me, the way I perceive Latinas is helping with diversifying the geosciences. As a lot of you have mentioned, we still have a long way to go. I am in the United States right now, and I'm always the only Latina in almost all the places that I participated, undergrad, both graduate schools in different states, postdoc, and now even as a faculty, I'm the only Latina faculty in my department. And so, or will be the only Latina faculty in my department. And so we do have a long way to go, but I think that any diversity, people from diverse backgrounds are important to, again, help that, and of course, provide, inclusive spaces for everybody. I guess the other question, do you consider geosciences inclusive for women? No, I think we're getting better, and I'm sure Nicole probably has a lot more to say than I do, since she's a little bit more, she's been in the game a little bit longer than me. But as I mentioned previously, not only have I been the only Latina in a lot of spaces that I occupy, sometimes I'm the only woman. Expectations for me are a little different. Sometimes I walk around with, for example, I walk around with like my husband, who's also a geologist, and people think I'm his student or some random person, even though we're both going to be assistant professors, right? And so I think the fact that there's even that sort of bias, when other people in geology, so I'm talking about this happening at conferences, even in the department that I'm going to be a faculty member at, this has happened to me. So yes, it's the short answer, but I know we're short on time, so I'm gonna let other people talk. Hopefully that addresses both questions.
We're not going to do all the questions because of the time. So you can if you want to say more, it's okay.
I just want to give some examples. I think I hit some of the main points. I'll let other people talk. Yeah.
Okay. Clairet, what have you perceived? How do you perceive the role of women in geosciences? And
yeah, well, I had to draft this answer because I get very emotional with this kind of answer. And the thing is that I believe that the Latin American women has a unique fighting gene. I call it the fighting spirit gene. And you saw it this week with the talks of Clara and Rocio and Luisa. You see clearly three distinct personalities, very different personalities, but there is one common factor among these ladies, and it's the will and the discipline and the determination to accomplish their dreams and their objectives. And this is something that I recognize mainly from my Latina female colleagues in general. And I think this is basically the secret ingredient we can bring to our daily tasks and to our projects, into our managerial style, into everything we do, is the will to be better and the will to improve and the will to accomplish our objectives. Now, do I consider geosciences inclusive for women? Well, I don't think science and knowledge has a gender or in general. So I've always wanted to know everything, and I look for the ways to understand the topic. But there are so many social indoctrination and conditions that on what a girl should or shouldn't be doing, as if because you're a woman, you are less qualified or qualified differently than somebody who's with the same CV, but that is a man. I believe, and tied to one of the previous answers I added on the gender gaps and on the the number of females versus men in academia and industry. We have to divide that in career stages. So in early career, yes, everybody's welcome. Come in, and as you enter the basic sciences and geosciences and STEM fields and early career, early stages job positions, so working positions. But as you scale up in the corporate ladder, you see less and less and less and less female peers. So I do know by experience that the female peers that are sitting in managerial positions or in positions of power or some hierarchy have to work triple the hard, triple the networking, triple the self-promotion, triple the marketing in order to accomplish something that for a guy is, let's say, less of a hustle. So yeah, I don't this break. It could be a bit easier to accomplish our objectives. And in that sense, I have to rescue the experience I've lived in Germany, tied to the comment you mentioned that Germany is actually promoting the inclusion of women, and this is very true. So more and more there are specific clauses in contracts for academia and industry that if you are presented with two similar or close to identical CVs, one's a woman, one's a man, choose a woman. It might seem a bit forced and not organic, as if I'm being recognized because I'm a woman and not because of my skills. Hang in there. This at first may seem a bit forced or a corporate push, maybe to filling a gap, maybe to comply with something, but this is setting the example for other companies and for other countries. So I think this is a bit of a very needed support and push. And overall, this now, marketing for GeoLatinas, this is basically the whole essence of why GeoLatinas exist, and is to promote and support women in geosciences and help us thrive a bit.
This what you just said is also that other women see women in these positions, because that's also what is not happening. The example is not there.
Yeah, no.
You know, in the higher positions. So sometimes, although it seems forced to do this forced situation, or the percentage, for example, you know, in politics, it makes it possible for younger women to see that it is possible to be there.
Yeah.
And someday this hopefully will not be necessary. Hopefully. Rachelle, what do you think? How do you perceive the Latina women in geosciences?
So I think what you all bring to the table is fundamentally important, and also in certain aspects different than what maybe, say, your average white female American can bring to the table. One observation, to be more specific, one observation I've had just living in this region for over 7 years now is people from Latin America, and women in particular, I think are, and Clairet had mentioned it, your fiery spirit, extremely hard work ethic. It's amazing. And also, you're particularly innovative with technology. And I think it's so important going forward and for the future of the geosciences. The geosciences are not inclusive. I think we've already pretty much decided and agreed upon that. I have always felt left out of the geosciences, not so much in my undergrad experience up in Wisconsin because men and women are treated more equally up there. That has been my general experience. But coming down to the southern part of the US and especially in Texas, seeing the disparities between the two is much greater. I see women, or I've been in school with women who, you know, they get their degrees here and then nothing happens after their degrees, and then they have their children and then that's it. And that's very, very common in the greater El Paso region. And I think this is something that locally really needs to change, and something that I hope going forward that there are more places for women from Latin America in our environment and in our workspace, in our communities, things like that. So I'm not sure if you've had that same experience in other places as, you know, in Latin America and other places in the US, but I see it being as a very, very real and huge problem here. That's all that I have.
Yeah, I think it like of course in the United States it depends a lot where you are. What you just said, your undergraduate was more inclusive. You saw more women, and then in Latin America it's the same. Some countries are more inclusive, much more inclusive than others, and I think some are really far behind in what women in geosciences is. I don't know, Maria, your experience.
Yeah, I think actually my experience differ a little bit with all the commentaries I've been hearing from the point of view that I believe and I agree with like one of you that says that sciences is genderless, like it doesn't matter if you're a woman or you're a man, like sciences are there to be learned. I believe, and I have seen in my experience, is that the academia is more welcoming and more open than the industry. I think there is a difference in between being inclusive and being inviting. I think geoscience per se is inviting, like the door is open, like you can actually walk in. I had the opportunity to travel to Indonesia to a gold mine, and unfortunately I couldn't travel because the miners said that I was a woman and it was bad luck for the miners if I was there. So as simple as that, I missed the opportunity to actually walk in. So the door was entirely closed for me. So I think that's something that you get to see in the industry and not much in the academia. In the academia is a little bit more subtle than in the industry. But like, I totally agree with the comment that Clairet was making about like that we need more role models, we need more women in like a position of power. I've been quite blessed, and I'm really, really excited because I'm like reaching those points of like the big positions with the big mining companies where ultimately I wanted to be when I was younger. And the way I'm seeing this is like, for sure I have been the quota. In many, many places I have been the quota. I have been the only woman. I have been the only Latina. I'm the minority. And sometimes I'm just like that colorful thing, like let's check that this woman works with us and whatever. But it doesn't matter because in that way, I have been given the opportunity to show my capacities. And it means that women that are behind me are going to be able to do exactly the same. So in 5 years, I have like actually recently I worked for like almost 3 years in Nevada. Nevada is a little bit like male chauvinist, and like women are like, well, it's a little bit complex there. And also with the Latino community is a little bit complex. You know, the Latinos are stealing our jobs. And the experience I had from there is that after like meeting with the miners and working with the miners and having the opportunity to like expose my ideas to them, they were like, I didn't know that like you Latin women were this cool. I didn't know that you were smart, like stuff like that. But then I know that in 5 years, the name of a younger, I don't know, I think Luz Elvia Castro, she's saying that she wants to be in this type of position in the future. In 5 years, somebody's going to see her resume, her CV, and it's going to be, yes, I can work with her. Like she is a person that I can work because I already have the experience, even though Maria was the quota. So my other comment to this is like, always ask the question. Like every time you accept a job position, every time you have a conversation with like somebody that is in a position of power, ask them, what is the program that your company has for like women and diversity? what is the idea of the university to be more inclusive? Like, ask those questions, like make people uncomfortable. That's how you get people to sit on the table and start like paying attention to this lack of diversity in the geosciences.
Thank you. Yes, it's a very important point. I'm going to read some comments because there are very nice comments about everything that you've said. Carolina Castro says, "I'm so excited. It is inspiring to listen to them." Bravo, Maria Poderosa. And that's why you are managing one of the most important, I can imagine, mining companies. So well said, Clairet. Latinas are strong and resilient. We learn from our mothers, grandmothers, aunts, sisters. I see it in all of our GeoLatinas members. So these are some of the comments. A lot of inspiration. Very nice. Nicole, the question about the women in geosciences.
Yeah. So I think the one thing I would like to say in the role of Latin American women in geosciences is I think we know from history, it has shown us that what happens when people who are not from your country come in and try to fix things and change things. And right now is a time of incredible change. And we see in many Latin American countries, we see mining, we see resource extraction, climate change, and what is happening to water resources and the redistribution of water. And the people who need to fix these problems and find solutions, find sustainability, are the people who are from those countries, who know that land, who care about the people who are there. And that's why we need all Latin American women. We need them hands on deck, helping to solve these problems. And the geosciences, I firmly believe, are critical moving forward in the next century. And if we don't take care, if we don't do things sustainably, we're all going to pay. And the only way this is going to happen is if we get Latin American women and all women around the world solving these problems. Otherwise, there will be messes, and some we might not be able to clean up. So that is my view. It's absolutely 100%. If we don't have people on board, we will pay.
Yeah. Aída.
Yeah, so I guess my own experience is part of why I think it's so important to have Latinas and Latin American women in the geosciences. I study Latina healthcare accessibility in the Chicago suburbs, and that comes from my own encounters and my mother's encounters with healthcare in the United States as a Latina woman and as a Spanish-speaking and English-speaking woman. And in geography, in my field, you know, this group isn't studied very much at all. Most minoritized ethnic and racial groups aren't studied in geography specifically to look at the situations that occur because of how racism and sexism interact in the United States or in any in other countries as well. And so, you know, just as Nicole said, when we have people from different backgrounds coming into these spaces, you know, they're going to bring with them the experiences and some of the knowledge of the communities they were raised in. And, you know, thinking about the folks in Latin America where so many of our really important resources are, you know, we have to be, you know, cognizant of the beliefs and understandings that, you know, the folks who actually live there have around those resources and what they want to do with them and how they want to protect them. So having people from different backgrounds just, you know, broadens our knowledge base inherently and also allows for us to dedicate the time and attention that's necessary to supporting groups that are minoritized by structural racism and other issues like that. And so that's part of why I think we need more diversity in the geosciences, but also the thing is I don't think we are inclusive. Julia Cisneros and I, another GeoLatinas member, we've been working to, like many of us, been working to impact diversity, equity, and inclusion in the geosciences, and have often encountered serious roadblocks in making programs and structural changes that can actually lead to that kind of successful diversity. And so it's really crucial that we are able to change those structural barriers to not be an issue anymore. But it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of collaboration, which is why I'm so grateful for GeoLatinas, because of all of the connections available here and to have those kinds of supports and networks. So
thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Kiara, how do you perceive the women, and do you think geosciences are inclusive?
Yeah, so I also had to kind of write this out because I'm also pretty passionate about this one. And I really think that us GeoLatinas and other women in the geosciences have, such a powerful role, not only in advocating for education and awareness, but also being a role model for our future generations. And we know that these are changing times, and this is especially true in Latin America, where I think change is, really happening in the sense that, there are more women in geosciences, although not where we want it to be, but it is increasing, with less barriers and whatnot. We are also in need of a lot of diverse views and experiences, because as Nicole said, that is how we will solve, our most complex problems. And also, there's another person here that said it really, really beautifully. We have such a passion and such fire for what we do, and we work so hard and to kind of like get where we are, and this is what we need right now. We need this this force of power that we have, the passion and all of that, for our younger the younger generations, the young girls that are kind of seeing us and watching us right now breaking glass ceilings and being in positions of power, and so that's important, and we are doing that, and that's something that we should continue to do. And I also think that one of the roles that I also see for us is that in trying to help bring the girls and the women who are kind of who are dreaming to be like us, to kind of to give them a hand, because I didn't say this, but I'm here because of the other women in geosciences, and I'm also here because of the of Latinas in geosciences too, and so I kind of want that to continue also, and I think that's our main part also. And in terms of your other question, we're not where we are. We're not where we want to be, where is very inclusive, but it's slowly changing. And I've always been more of the on the side that we're more powerful also if we have both men and women next to us fighting for these, for these changes to move that towards more inclusion in geosciences.
Yes, very, very, very well said. Very nice. Yes, thank you. I can read some more comments. And that's why you are a manager. Oh, I already read that. Sorry, I had already read that. But todos muy orgullosos por su perseverancia y luchas por lograr sus metas. Guerra César, she must be, I don't know, she says, mi hija es una extraterrestre, una guerrera total. Who is that? Your mother. Very nice. Oh, okay. Because we don't have a lot of time, we're going to ask the last question, which in a way is what advice you can give to the younger generation of women who are studying geosciences, because we all agree that there's still a lot to be done, and although things may be changing, and experiences are being acquired, but there's still a lot to be done. So what would be the advice that you would give to the younger generation of women that are studying geosciences? That's, I think, the kind of the last question to finish this really nice group event. Sorry, I didn't say it. I didn't say who. Aída, what would you tell the younger generation?
I think the most important thing is to, two things. One is find something that you're passionate about and let that be the main focus for you, is that you love it and that you want to study it and you want to pursue that. Because that's what keeps, for anything, not just in the face of, any kind of bias or other difficulties from like the structures we're within, but also just like when it's hard, right? And you don't want to wake up and write up your analysis or go out and collect data in the cold. Like, you do it because of what's going to come from that work, and that you love doing it and you love getting those insights. And the other part is to find your people and make, your network, and really invest in that network, not because of how it'll benefit you in one way, but because those are the people that are going to take care of you and keep you going when things are hard and are going to support you. Julia Cisneros and I, we actually both went to Texas A&M University, and we were in the same College of Geosciences together. And that's how we became friends, was through our classes and our coursework. And we would collaborate on projects, and collaborative projects are some of where I met some of my greatest and closest friends, and where I learned to band together and make change happen, is with those partners and everything we do. And so when we went to graduate school, she would advocate for me as I was applying to graduate school. And since then we have just continued to support each other back and forth and support our friends and make connections that way. And so you never know who in your network is going to be able to have your back in a moment where you might feel alone. And that's really valuable. And so just, make your friends and look for partners to collaborate with, look for who you work best with and can support, and that'll keep you going. And also look for a lot of different people to work with. And that way you have a lot of different perspectives to have your back as well. So yeah, and that's why I'm so grateful for GeoLatinas again, is because of the opportunity to meet people from all over the world, actually. So
very nice. Nicole.
So I 100%. It's find your people. I completely agree with what Aída said. And I really want to echo what Kiara said. You know, we need, just like we need all hands to be working on these problems, you know, we need men to be addressing all of the issues in of lack of inclusion or any kind of bias that exists. We need everyone to be doing that. So when you're looking for your people, be open-minded and realize that your people are all going to look different and be in different spots. And some might be in your department, some may be outside of your department. You know, something I like to say about GeoLatinas is the most included I've ever felt in the geosciences has been in the GeoLatinas. And I am not a Latina, but somehow I have found people who are willing to work with me and accept me and treat me as equal. And that's not something you always find in the geosciences and STEM in general. So be open-minded and find those people, find your passion. Absolutely.
Yeah, great. And Francis, what would you tell the young generation?
I guess two things. Echoing on what everybody said, I would tell them that, you know, you're not alone. You know, we're here as a resource. And if not us, you know, there are other people that are willing to help you. You know, I wish that I had done this earlier in my career, is just reach out to people. And I think a lot of us in GeoLatinas sort of resonate that fact. You know, we only started about a year ago with only 3 or 4 of us. And now we have all of these people, you know, that not only do we need each other to, you know, persevere, but we're here and ready to help other people also persevere in the geosciences, and we want to help. And so definitely reach out sooner than later. You're not alone. Also, you know, take advantage of all of the opportunities that you can. You know, I think, you know, if it was somebody else, you know, who was a little bit more privileged, they wouldn't even second guess opportunities, right? And I think, you know, I've struggled with that throughout my career. You know, it's like, you know, do I really deserve this? Am I really qualified for this? And like I said, you know, if it was like a white man, you know, he probably wouldn't even second guess it. So, you know, don't second guess yourself and take all the opportunities. And yeah, you're not alone. GeoLatinas is here to help. Or again, if not us, there are a lot of other people that, you know, you can have as your people. So, yeah.
Kiara, what would you say?
I think one of the most important advice that I always give is that, you know, if you love what you're doing, which is to study geosciences, you know, never let anyone deter you from achieving that goal. You know, even if it's your family, because you know what is best for you. And, you know, as for my case, you know, my father was extremely worried, super on the fence when I told him that I was going both to Smith College and then after when I was going to study geosciences and then go to Greece by myself. You know, he was very conservative. Not very like, you know, let me do what I love, because he wanted me to be, you know, a doctor and one of those careers that were awesome, yeah, but it's not what I wanted. And so that's what I would tell the new generation, that, you know, the geosciences is the geosciences is not that well advertised until you get to college, but it's okay if your family says, well, what is that? You know, 8 years after telling my dad, he is now coming around to it. So, but that just tells you that if you stick to it, you know, and follow what you want to do, you know, the doors will be wide open for you. And as also Francis said, you know, ask for help and keep going, you know, even if it's like small steps. Because if you're like me, we're so used to doing things, you know, by ourselves, you know, because we want to be strong, independent women, and we are, you know, but we also need to help as well for us to get where we want to be. And for the second question, which would be what would be an incentive for more women to study geosciences? I think just having more role models as well. Groups like GeoLatinas are really important because we are able to kind of advocate as well. And I think the next one would be, you know, for companies as well to have the responsibility to have the same pay, you know, equal pay. And that is, you know, what we all want as well. And it's not only in industry, it's also in academia. I don't know how it is in Latin America, but I know that here in the US, we have a huge gender pay gap, and that needs to change. And so that would be more of an incentive as well, and also be more transparent.
Yeah, I think in Latin America there's also a big gender payment gap. I think even maybe bigger than in the United States or other places. Rachelle, what advice would you give the young generation?
I have a lot of advice.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, where to begin? It's a lot to unpack. The main thing is know your worth. Don't take crap from people. Also, if you feel like something isn't right, or you're being treated in a way that you don't like, change it. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to be your authentic self. Be the person that you dream about in your mind. You're capable of anything. You can't lose hope. You have to surround yourself with the people that you want to be, that you want to become. Learn how to recognize and see sort of someone that isn't good for you and good for your well-being, good for your mental, and learn grace. Learn to somehow stand up for yourself, say what you believe is right and true, stick to your authentic self, but try to do it somehow with some grace. That's been the thing I've been learning the most lately. I have a tendency just to kind of sometimes blurt things out, and which I think is totally fine, but at the same time, I have found moving with grace to be a big help with that.
Very nice. Clairet, what advice would you give?
So I will rescue a bit from what everybody else have said. I had a very, technical definition for it, like a good support system, but it translates into find your people. I'm very lucky that I come from a family that's the most supportive and science-driven family anybody can have. But not only that, in my very personal environment, outside of my personal environment in academia and now in my work environment, I count with a lot of excellent mentors, male and female, who enable me to basically develop all the skills I need to move forward. This is not a bunch of people, it's maybe one or two, but they really make the difference. I'm fully aware that this is not the case for everybody. So I would encourage all the new generations to really invest in finding these connections. For very specific experiences, like, for example, I'm the first to pursue a PhD. I'm the first one to live in Germany. And these are specific things that my family, even though fully empathetic, and my advisors cannot give me. So here's where I bring GeoLatinas, because GeoLatinas is this point of the cultural mixture and experiences and profiles and skills. And you say, okay, I have this very specific experience, and somebody will pop out and say, I'm here for you and I'm here to help. And this is all out of the good heart of many women, many volunteers, many men, now men and women, and volunteers that put their time and their patience and their efforts to help each other. That's on the outside. Now, on the inside, I will rescue. Kiara says that please don't let people interfere with your focus. Don't let people come and mess up with your plan, and be the person that's in your dreams. You become that person. And to accomplish this, I broke it down into 3 things: discipline, grit, and responsibility to yourself and to your dreams. And that we've got this. And we're here for all of you. And that's it. Yeah.
And Maria, what advice would you give?
Yeah, so I think all the advices are great. I wish I had a space like this one when I was starting my career, when I was trying to decide if I wanted to stay in sciences, in engineering, in all these. So all these advices, I can apply them right now, like 15 years down the road. So I guess all of us, we are learning from each other still. And from the younger generation, like, please pay attention to all the things that these amazing women just said, because I wish I had those advices when I was younger. I would like to add to all this is that, have you heard the expression, dress for the job you want? I would like to say it's more like prepare for the role you want. So it's like, be there, be prepared, start building your profile. What do you want to do? What do you want to be? Because like life waits for no one. Opportunities are not gonna come and knock on your door, and you cannot say to the opportunity, wait a little bit because I still haven't learned English. Or wait a little bit because I still don't know. Like, no, opportunities come and you need to be ready for them. So start doing today what you want to do, start building it today. It's a collection of your daily effort, what is gonna take you to the future. But at the same time, and this is a little bit different to what I just said, but they are connected, is that also show up. Just even if like it's proven that like women, we wait to be 100% the checklist before applying for a job, before asking for a position. Men, they only wait to be 70% of all the items that are required. So just show up. Even if you think you are not ready, just show up. It's okay. You already have a no. So let them to tell you no, because if you don't do that diligence of at least going and showing up yourself, you already have a no. So go for it, even if you think you're not ready, and keep working as you want, as you reach that point. And I think, as I'm saying, like about showing up, is that women in STEM, like science, technology, engineering, and math, like the percentage at 2019, it was 43% of the population are women. But then when we go to the industry or to the academia, it's less than 10%. So what's happening with that 33% of people, like of us women? What are we doing? Like, are we just staying at home because we are not getting the opportunities, or we are not showing up for the opportunities? So it's also some responsibility. It's not only the world responsibility, but it's also our responsibility to be prepared and to show up. And I think the last question is, what will be the incentive? Is like, be a role model. Like, I think this is one of those areas that we keep complaining that women, we want equality and we want equal opportunities, but then we just don't show up. So I think like going into geosciences is going to open to you the opportunity to be a person that they can actually take a decision on hiring that person. Like I think Clairet was saying that you have the CV of a man and the CV of a woman, but what if the CV of the woman is not even part of the pack? You gotta be there. So I think that's one of the biggest motivations. And then on the side, I will say that one of the most beautiful experiences of my life when I was in the middle of the desert, nowhere in between Arizona and Nevada, and I was visiting a possible mine deposit in between the mountains. There were nothing there, nobody was there, and I saw a big herd of 25 wild horses running like free as they are. And I think that showed me that this type of careers takes you to places that you wouldn't imagine. Thanks to mining and thanks to geosciences, I have gotten to be in places that nobody else have been, nobody else that outside of the industry, and places that I never even dreamed of on my wildest dream when I was a young person in Colombia. So that will be my motivation to study something in geosciences.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. Very, very, very important things that you have said, and it's been an honor to be with you here in this panel. There are some comments. Some comments like "Love Maria, puro fuego, Latin power." I also want to be your friend. Come to my virtual birthday. I don't know. This is Clara Rodriguez. Aplausos. They're very, very positive comments. Salary gaps in Latin America are huge, and worst part of all is every manager and company spokesperson says it doesn't exist. That's also. Elizabeth Vanessa says, gracias por este espacio, es emocionante, inspirador tener la oportunidad de escucharlas. Congratulations to each of the women in this group. And well, there are very many positive comments to all of you. So thank you very much for being here, and I hope the younger generation follows all these advice that you gave them. So with this, pues damos digamos la despedida. Recuerden por favor llenar el formulario de asistencia. Yo creo que no nos va a dar tiempo para hacer preguntas del público, y con esto pues damos fin al último conversatorio. De nuevo pues muchísimas gracias a las invitadas, ha sido un honor, y también pues muchas gracias a todas las personas que están conectadas. Vamos a finalizar con dos integrantes de GeoLatinas Medellín que van a dar el cierre de esta semana con GeoLatinas. Entonces, son Laura y Catherine.
Bueno, buenas tardes. Hemos llegado al final del evento con GeoLatinas y queremos aprovechar este espacio para darle las gracias a todas estas personas que hicieron posible el evento, como el apoyo de la Universidad Nacional por parte de Daniel Andrade y Luis Escobar, que pertenecen a la Dirección de Bienestar Universitario. También queremos darle las gracias al Museo de Geosciencias, a la comunidad de GeoLatinas y a todas nuestras invitadas por el apoyo, por hacernos creer que todo era posible y que los sueños se pueden hacer realidad. Sin duda alguna, también al grupo local de Medellín y al grupo organizador.
Por último, pero no menos importante, gracias a todas las personas que estuvieron activas en nuestras redes sociales, participando en cada uno de los conversatorios. Queremos dar una mención especial a Camilo Willes y a nuestros amigos por todo el amor y el apoyo recibido. Esperamos que esta semana haya sido de inspiración y agrado para cada uno de ustedes. No olvides seguirnos en nuestras redes sociales para que estén atentos a nuestros próximos eventos y publicaciones. En Instagram como @GeoLatinasMed, en Twitter como @GeoLatinasM, en Facebook como GeoLatinas Medellín. Si quieres pertenecer a este grupo local, no duden en escribirnos. Los despiden Catherine Cano y
Laura Radas. Que tengan un feliz día.